You talk a lot about the Akashic records. As you explain it, it's God's spinal cord. We actually have lots of questions, but we'd like to know your opinion, because I think it goes with your line of thought. In your opinion, and for the people watching us, where do the Akashic records come from? What are they? Why should we reach them, and how can we use them? Firstly, we need to understand that the Akasha means light in Sanskrit. So they are records of light. We could describe them like a library. From a very human and cultural perspective, they're like a library, where all the books from the past, present, and future are kept. All the probabilities of the universe are written in these books, which are inside the library. We used to call it Thamithyorga, which means the great cosmic library. This space, well, it's not a space. I don't know how to describe it. It's a network, a concept. It can be compared to a neurological system in which all the information of the past, present, and even future, since I'm always creating probabilities in order to know how I'm going to act in certain circumstances, is registered in electrical pulses. That's why I call it the spinal cord of God. Because if we talk about God, the cosmos, and give it an image, this place would be the cerebellum, the spinal cord, all the nervous system which registers and sends information. It takes, absorbs the information from both the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic one on a biological level. All the data is registered. And what's the main thing here? That it's neutral information. Since the information is neutral, it means that everything is there and that it's a public library that one can consult. However, one will not find the truth there. One will only find truths, which are the probabilities of a lot of data and information that come together. We need to understand that this is information not on the conscious plane of the universe, but on the subconscious one. That's why I mentioned the parasympathetic system. There's a lot of information now being registered, which we don't even realize. So when we go to the planes of this library, it's not like we're going to read, I was this in this year. It's not like that. I'm going to feel a smell. I'm going to feel a strange ache related to that smell. All the information is completely mixed up within the subconscious without a linear order, which is the way we're used to rationalizing. That's why it's not a library we should consult randomly. We should be very clear about the question and the objective as to why am I entering the library? What precisely am I looking for? What am I looking for? What does one really need? We were talking about the 3D. It's not for gossip. It's not for gossip, right? It's not for where am I going to be tomorrow. Exactly. But if we entered the records, time and space do not exist in 3D, right? What could you tell us about that? In 3D, the concept of time and space does exist, but in a way, we're dominated by that concept. However, cosmically, universally, they don't exist. Then if someone wants to access their Akashic records and wants to see their future, the future is nothing but the present, right? It's something like that? Exactly. All the probabilities of the future are happening here and now. That is the concept of the here and now, the real concept of the here and now. Not the concept that refers to being present here and now. That's called the present, not the here and now. But not the here and now. It's good to differentiate. It changes things. Here and now is when I manage to be fully aware of the fact that I've walked the path. I have a projection into the future and that now I'm comprised of external and internal agents that contain me in this precise moment of reality. So the past, present, and future constitutes the here and now. All the spaces. All the possible times and spaces constitute the here and now. A fulfilled being is fully aware of its past, present, and future at the same time. That's why information like, I want to know what's happening or going to happen in 1,000 years, okay, it's there. But everything is going to happen in 1,000 years. It's going to depend on the projection I have of those 1,000 years. Do you understand? It depends on my vibrational state. If my conscious vibrational state is like, it's like seeing the future is like I once heard Punset's daughter explain, that we usually think the things in the universe are the way we see them. And we really need to compare it to, for example, when an ant walks on our body. The ant walks on our body, but it doesn't see the human. It sees at each little part. It can't understand the whole it would call a human. So it doesn't understand, it just understands a finger or a foot. Yes, it can only see that part. With time and space is similar. If my level of consciousness is that of the ant, I'm only going to understand that little part. When my level of consciousness expands, I can understand it's something else. So the future changes depending on the amplitude I have of my consciousness today. In this 3D, many call it free will, which would be being able to project what I decide for myself into a future. But it's true that, as you say, in order to get to the record, we first have to understand this fractal, knowing you are what you are going to project into a future depending on your vibrational state. And free will, which is based on unconditional love, only exists on a spiritual level. It only exists on a spiritual level? It only exists on a spiritual level because the moment the spirit projects itself outward, it creates a first fractal. It creates a condition which is a mirror. When it creates its first fractal, it creates the condition. I am here because another person is there. Unconditional love and free will cease to exist from that moment onwards. It becomes a projection, a polarity. So everything exists as an intention of my free will to be able to experiment a conditioned reality. Imagine that. This needs to be studied. I was going to ask you something else, but I'm going to dive into this now if you'll allow me. So you're telling me that when somebody loves someone and they theoretically say, I love them unconditionally, maybe they're projecting something about themselves that they see in the other, and they think they are looking for it in others or themselves. Is it like that? Yes. Usually it's very complex and there's a lot to say about the topic. I can sum it up, but there'll still be many questions because there's a lot of information there. We are all usually conditions of, right? I'm here being interviewed. I am a condition that I must be here. Even though I chose to come here freely, I can't escape my condition as an interviewee, right? Because your projection is that of an interviewer. So everything that happens, there is darkness, but they can see me because of the light. So there's a condition. Light and darkness allow me to be visible. There are conditions in everything, and when we project them to human emotions, it's even worse because everything is emotional. Everything is connected to a vibrational field. So what is the escape route out of all of this? Because one says, what can I do in order to love unconditionally? When you accept and love the conditions of realities, that is, it's like wanting to play a game but breaking all of the rules of the game. So we've got a game and there are rules to respect. When I realize that I'm not a piece of the game, but I am rather the one that created the game, then I'm going to play. I'm not going to be a piece, an object or a piece. It makes a difference. And that is the change in consciousness to unconditionality. So when I can see the game board and not when I try and solve it piece by piece, maybe it's what's happening, as you mentioned, and especially at an emotional level, conflicts related to emotional or relationship issues. Maybe that's where the key is, looking at it from a different paradigm, from unconditional love without conditions and taking these paradigms into account. Perfect.
My